right, so hi, I'm Shinobi from Bitcoin Magazine, joined by Rusty Russell from Blockstream, the core Lightning team. And today we are going to dive into his mad plan called the Bitcoin Script Restoration Project. And so I guess to kind of frame this a little bit, there were quite a number of opcodes that Bitcoin originally supported when Satoshi launched it that he kind of turned off in a panic without really any explanation or comment, because a lot of them introduced huge denial of service vectors that could have pretty much just blasted nodes on the network offline. And you want to turn all of them back on.
Yeah. So originally Script was Script is quite a complete stack-based language. It has all the things you'd expect from a programming language. And then in 2010, there was a CVE report that basically there were a whole different number of ways this could go wrong. There were basically no limits on the things you could do. And so, Satoshi's like, oh shit, the network's gonna fall over, goes through and goes, nope, we're gonna cut this down. Okay, here's, fix it later. The network could crash any day, right? Could be on fire. Let's just fix this. Okay, so 0.3.1 came out, and it had disabled, soft fork of course, but disabled all those opcodes. And that's fine, we kind of stumbled along for a while, but certainly in the last few years, as people have gotten more ambitious with things they try to do. I mean, programmable money for a while just meant, I could do a signature and I could send you money and stuff, and that was cool. But the original intent was always it could be, you could set conditions, arbitrary spending conditions on your coins, right? Go and do that. But increasingly people realized that a whole really interesting things had been shotgunned out in a panic, which I completely understand as this kind of emergency measure. But we never finished the process, right? Basically, the house is burning down, you put the fire out, but then you rebuild, right? And we never got that second stage. We just left things as like, well, there's no kitchen, right? And so the question is then, okay, if we did want to bring them back, obviously we have to put some limits on them, and what does that look like, right? So the really technical question is, how do we do that in a way that's, clear and clean and everything else? And I went down like a huge number of rabbit holes with this. It started with opcat. People want opcat, which is very simple. It's one of the things that was disabled. Takes two things off the stack, glues them together, and sticks them back on. And you would think that this would be trivial and uncontroversial, but you can also see how, why opcat was disabled. If you don't put any limits on it, you can duplicate something, cat it, and you're doubling every time. And next thing you know, your nodes run out of memory, you crashed. So is the rest of the network because you've got this, this transaction. So we obviously need some limits. What are they? Right. And obviously we want the limits to be high enough that you don't have to worry about them. Anything you're actually going to do, you'll never hit the limits. That's fine. But the ceiling has to be about somewhere that if you're trying to actually attack the network and create a transaction that's going to take 10 minutes to resolve, you're going to hit that limit. We're going to kick it out. The transaction fails.
Yeah, you still need nodes to actually be able to stay online and bear that verification cost.
And so the fundamental question is, can you have a scheme that cannot be denial of service because the limit's low enough that it stops you from doing these stupid transactions, but high enough that you never have to worry about it? We already have one like this, actually. We have a check sig limit called the SIGOPS budget. And for every 50 bytes of transaction, you can do one check sig. You actually get one bonus one as well. But 50 bytes of witness data, you get one. And because the signature itself is 64 bytes, that's enough, right? You only need 50 bytes of that to justify your signature, you're good. That is a very trivial case of the only time someone's ever going to hit the budget when they're doing something stupid. They're literally deliberately trying to do things. As far as we know, you never hit that budget, Miniscript never hits it, no one ever has to worry about it, we almost don't mention it, but it's there because if you're really trying hard, you're duplicating, checking, you'll hit that limit, right? And your transaction will fail. So that's very clean. Can we do the same thing for these other operations? And after some research, my tentative conclusion is yes, we can. That the limit, we can make a ridiculously high limit. It's not infinite, but it's pretty high, so that we think that you could never hit it in the normal case, so it doesn't really constrain you, but it constrains you from doing stupid denial of service things. And this was the question I tried to answer. And once you've got this in your pocket, you can re-enable all the things. You go, okay, cool, we can have cat back because we know you can't break anything with it, right? And everybody, it turns out, wants cat. But there's a lot of other things too that were disabled. Originally in 0.3, we had arbitrary length integers. You want really big numbers, you can have them. Satoshi, in a bit of a panic, cut them to 31 bits, which is a really annoying number because you can have 51 bits of Satoshis, for example. So you want to do stuff with Satoshis, now you're stuck, right? I mean, it's fine for me because I don't have that many Bitcoin, but for some people out there, they may want to do more intelligent things with big numbers. So we want that, right? We literally lost the ability to multiply or divide. There was stuff that was just taken out because it's like, well, how much? I don't know. What happens if they multiply a really big number? The ability to, or an and. I mean, these binary operations was gone. Shifting numbers around was wiped. So you start looking at it, you go, oh, programmable money, but.
Yeah, and it kind of creates a lot of limitations on what you can do. Like if you wanted to introspect like amounts in an output or constrain those in some ways, like you don't actually have the number capacity in a single int value to actually encompass the maximum possible amount that could be stored in an output. And that kind of limits like your ability to constrain those kinds of things, the higher value you're trying to constrain.
That's right. So, and it turns out things you think you would be able to do, you go, cool, you can spend if these conditions start getting really difficult because script also never gave you a way to look inside, directly look inside. There are indirect ways of doing it that we had originally, but there's no direct, hey, so how much is this output spending? Like, where's it going? And it makes sense. The whole point of programmable money is you can program it. And we ended up with this weird, a language you would never have designed. Like you designed a language and then ripped out weird stuff. And so you've got this kind of hobbled language that doesn't quite make sense. And it's close. Now, for years, we never really noticed because people were basically just sending money and stuff. But increasingly, people are feeling these limits and pushing for solutions, right? Yeah. So the first thing is let's clean things up. Let's get back this subset that we had with limits on it so that it doesn't, it's out of control. So we've actually solved the problem from 2010. And then we can look at it and go, cool, now we've got a clean system back again that is fully complete. Are there other things we need? And I think the obvious one you've mentioned is introspection. You want to be able to ask, hey, no, where is this going? How much is going? Are you paying a fee? All these things.
Because it's like you can do that. We've seen with the tinkering Rindell and some others have been doing with opcat, but it's very ugly, messy, inefficient. And if we're going to go down this road of specifically enabling these types of things, we should have just an explicit carve out opcode or functionality to do it efficiently, rather than go well, take the shovel and go figure it out.
I mean, it's really clever that they can do it, but not only is it grossly inefficient, it's not easy to understand. A script that says, get the output amount, compare it with this, or fail, I can read that, right? The opcat thing? So, wow, I asked Rindell, what does this mean?
It makes my head hurt. I can conceptually, in an abstract way, understand exactly what he's doing, but when I try to actually look at the stack operations, my head just explodes.
It's a mess. So, and I think this is the point, that if we restore script, we do give people the ability to do this really badly. And that's the worst of all worlds, right? But so given that we want to restore script and we want full power back, because that's basically handing people the full original promise of programmable money, then obviously, they want to be able to program it in the most clear and straightforward way possible. So there are a handful of extra things, the obvious one being, direct introspection. You want to be able to just ask, so how much is this spending? Well, how much is coming in? How much is going out? Those kind of things are, you would think, fundamental to a language. And so let's make those neat. And there are a number of really good proposals to do this. And that's what we're here to discuss. But from my point of view, the base is let's restore script to what it was supposed to be originally. And we think we have a way of doing that that's clean and neat and safe.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that Paul looks at me as the sole, or if not half the reason, Alex over there, that drive chains is not active on Bitcoin, and it's been a really big concern of mine. And with Cat alone, you can kind of building off of Rindell's vault scheme, essentially enable drive chain variant with just that. You can restrict the withdrawals and have the staging voting period. You can, because of Cat, open that up so that any miner can move or revault that. And at that point, the merge mining scheme, like you can just use anything. Like there are so many different ways to do that. But a lot of the arguments, people yourself and others who want to kind of push in this direction of script restoration are making is essentially, no matter what we do, if we inch past a certain point of complexity, like I would just kind of arbitrarily put it somewhere around check template verify, no matter which opcode or proposal you enable that crosses that line, it enables some form of drive chains. And so it's this inherent question of like, do we want to forever stay in this hobbled, like restricted zone, or do we want to just accept that we have to go past that and hope that people just build a better, less incentive distorting systems than something like drive chains? So
actually, this is a really good point. I think there's a couple of things here. One is that my whole life has been building stuff for other developers to do things on. And sometimes they do stupid stuff, but there's been a lot more insanely great stuff that has been built on stuff that I created for them that I could never have built, right? So I have a huge amount of faith in open ecosystems and their ability to innovate. And the things that will get built on top of a solid base are amazing. And so even just talking to people here, like some of the stuff that they're talking about is, on a good day I can keep up, right? But it's some fantastic stuff. And so I think that's a good question. Like there are going to be people building stuff that is of questionable value they may argue with, but I think there'll be far more building good things. But the other point is that there's an very old idea that I don't know, probably goes back to Greg Maxwell, that
it always does.
It often does, right? A Bitcoin Talk forum post from 2010. So there was a thought experiment that somebody sets up a lottery that's based on the Bitcoin block hash. And if it's a certain block hash, then this ticket will win, right? And this lottery becomes so incredibly important and influential and like expensive. That was Andrew's shorts you just saw walk back and forth. This lottery becomes so overwhelming and so rich that the Bitcoin just becomes a thing where all the miners do is try to reorganize the last block to win the lucky ticket, and the whole of Bitcoin's destroyed. Now, that can happen today without any changes, right? So, this is a subset of the fundamental problem of stupid people with more money than you, right? If there are enough people doing stupid shit, you can get overwhelmed. Now, it's hard to overwhelm Bitcoin today because it's bigger. But I'm not convinced that there was any more the case that there's that much stupid money. Transient things, yes. People can stuff the blockchain full of shit for like a while. But it's expensive now. It's getting expensive, it's getting more expensive. And I think the utility of Bitcoin is increasing to the point where it's, that price goes up. And so if they want to do stupid, useless shit, that cost is going to rise. That said, I'm sure there are more stupid people out there with money, so we may see a few more waves. But long term, I'm optimistic that our economic incentives cannot be distorted by stupid shit. Now, there's nothing in here that directly enables that, but I'm sure they can combine, hey, here's an opcode, here's some power we've added, we can go do stupid stuff. But I think they can do that already.
I mean, it's an argument I've personally been very resistant to for a couple years now at this point, just out of... I would have to say like a somewhat irrational like concern or caution at this point. That's just like let's actually let things play out and see how bad the dumb things are that people can do already, and see if there is some kind of ceiling that exists that's going to put a limit on that. And it's in the last year especially, like I see no ceiling in sight. Like it's just an open roof.
Yeah, I don't know. Things just haven't been that bad. I mean, people talk about like spam, but fundamentally, nobody that I know of, their node is struggling from the 4 megabyte blocks, right? In that sense, then the network was fine. Fee spikes, of course, are what we're talking about, the economic effects. But even that has been fairly transient, and we know that. For whatever reason, it'll be arbitrary, and price moves when we get price spikes. There is going to be fee spikes in future. The long-term trend is up, but it will be highly volatile on the way there, right? And it'll be annoying. And it doesn't matter whether it's happening because of some idiots doing stupid stuff, or whether it's because legitimate economic activity has peaked at this point because whatever. The same effect for you as a user. You're like, it's fucking expensive to transact now, right? So I think that's going to happen, and it's going to happen increasingly. We're going to see these waves going up and down. Did we not move for too long? I don't know if you can still see us. Oh, we're back.
It's been an entertaining interview so far. Andrew Shorts, the lights.
Yeah, I don't know what I was saying, but yeah, I think, you know, yes, we saw this spike of stupid shit, and we will see more. You know, but Bitcoin still ticks along, and I think it's going to, at this point, it would take a lot more than that to have a significantly permanent detrimental effect.
Yeah, and you know, we kind of just went off on a tangent there for a bit, but you know, I think there's some other pieces in addition to like explicit introspection that you wanted to kind of bundle in this whole restoration process.
So okay, so there's restoration, and there's things that are obviously going on top, and restoration includes restoring the ability to deal with arbitrary numbers, which is something that Satoshi cut out. What's interesting is I didn't realize that when I proposed that, because people were talking about how we need 64-bit numbers, and I was like, well, maybe we should just have variable length numbers. Anthony Towns actually sent me an email. I don't know how he contacted me. He mentioned, hey, you know, realize that it was actually the original Bitcoin had variable length integers. I'm like, no shit. Because yeah, you can literally check out the old version of Bitcoin. You can 0.2 and look at it. You're like, oh yeah. I mean, Satoshi just used the OpenSSL big num library, and we no longer do stuff like pull in whole unknown sources from other. We got rid of OpenSSL for a good reason. So we didn't have to implement that ourselves. But yeah, we used to have this, and I'm like, wow, okay, that explains a lot. And it just explains how far down we've fallen from where we could have been. And just, you know, I think there's certainly among people who are developing on top of Bitcoin, there's an amazing hunger for this. They're like, yes, can we have it all back? And I think it's weird that somebody didn't propose this seriously before. And I think that's because you also had to come up with an answer for, well, what do you do about the knowledge service thing? And that's a significant amount of work to get there. But now we have a proposal that I think is relatively solid. It opens this possibility. I think that's exciting to people.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I think, you know, I think a big part of me kind of slowly being won over by this idea of like a comprehensive, you know, restoration and extension of functionality versus like the rather insane conservatism that I've generally advocated for is like the recent events with, you know, projects like Samurai, what's the wallet? One of the Ethereum wallets. It's a front-end browser, but like these pushes by the U.S. government lately to essentially like argue that even self-custodial things are, you know, something subject to financial regulations. And, you know, it's kind of a really important fight to put up and, you know, push against. But kind of the overhanging specter above that is, well, those things don't scale. And so if you want in that type of potential environment to actually have self-custodial tools be an option that users can just use anyway and go, I don't care what you're saying, they actually have to scale.
Yes.
And like it's kind of lit a fire under my ass where it's like, it's time to take this seriously and stop taking baby steps and try to get the little tiny extension or jump forward. Like, we really need to comprehensively think about how are we going to scale this in a self-custodial way, or you're going to have this pincer of self-custodial things that don't scale being like something users are progressively priced out of as they're attacked, and regulated outright custodial things just pincing everybody from both sides.
Yeah, so it's actually really interesting. I think there's been an awareness in the last, you know, certainly increasingly the last 3 months, 6 months, about the whole problem of people getting priced out of sovereignty. And I think that's the right thing to be worried about long term. You really need to be thinking about this, not necessarily in the short term, but certainly, you know, it's pretty straightforward, straight line from here, right, to that point where you go, we want fees to go up, but that just means that you're de minimis. And it's not just, I don't want to pay the fees because it's going to cut into my stash, but like I literally can't pay it. And that subset is really, really interesting. And the question is, what is the best thing we can do? And we have, trust is a spectrum, right? I mean, the higher we can push this up towards self-sovereignty, the better. We can get really close. There are some really, you know, there's a lot of playing around here, but all of them require us to fix script so that we can do them, right? And I think there was a really interesting line here, you know, We don't have a really great answer right now, but we have some pieces that look really promising. There's a rough spectrum of, sure, you could screw me over, but you can't profit from it. And we can make that kind of cheap. Like I can force you to burn the coins, which sucks for me, but also reduces your incentive to run me because you can't.
Yeah, you gain nothing.
You gain nothing. So there's there's a spectrum here of trust levels. And the question is, what can we do? How far can we push it? Like, how hard can we make it for you to run me? Right? There are fraud proofs. There are other things where you go, cool, I have got an agreement from 28 people, and I promise you I have their signatures. I'm putting 1 Bitcoin down to prove it. And if you can prove I'm wrong, my money gets, there are some schemes. All of them have issues, and all of them are complicated, but it's worth the engineering effort. And this is the point, that things that we wouldn't bother doing today because fees are relatively low, in future, we will do a lot of work to build schemes because it pays, right? Because the fees are high, and not just for people who can't afford it. People who don't want to afford it are going to be paying for it. You know what? It's actually cheaper for us to go through all this development and research and have this solid system on top because we don't want to be paying fees. So, I am incredibly optimistic that we can expand self-sovereignty significantly, and we can also significantly improve privacy on chain too. There's some of these schemes are really clever that way, and so we want all these things. And yeah, I think there's I think you're right. There's an appetite to go, well, let's just fix it. There's a certain the idea of like doing what's the tiniest change we can do. But that hasn't saved us either, because every tiny change opens up this thing. Oh shit, accidentally got covenants again, right? All the interesting things involve increasing power, and increasing power means crossing that line that was accidentally drawn, right? We had covenants, but we didn't know it in Bitcoin 0.3. I'm with you. I think the time is now and I've been surprised. So I thought maybe I'd propose this great script restoration and people would be like, whoa, that's too big. And people's first reaction was, well, when we step through it, you go, actually, this is just engineering. There's nothing complicated or new in here. Literally nothing new in here. This is all just, okay, we finish the job and we clean things up. And when people start looking at that, they go, this is worth the engineering, obviously there's a lot of work and validation, and we have to be thorough and methodical and, and get all our ducks in a row. But it's just work.
Well, it's that, or, frankly, we are going to be sitting here with a totally unscalable system, and your choice at the end of the day is what do you prefer using, Coinbase or Kraken?
Yeah, exactly. So, I think we can do better, and we should.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I really appreciate you sitting down and giving me some time, Rusty, and hopefully this motivated everybody to really start thinking about what we're going to do beyond knee-jerk reactions.